The Duke, your mama's boyfriend, only on Urban Edge, not just radio.
Urban Edge, not just radio. This is the Weekend Vibe, and I'm standing in for the E behind the MIC, and that is Bra Eddie Mohale, who will be back next weekend. That is next week, Saturday, between 9 and 12. Well, today is a very special day because I bring to you a man who will be with us on the 10th and then on the 11th of October. He'll be doing a tour, and I cannot wait for it. And I also know that you cannot wait for it. His name is AJ Ghent. And I know you know him from TikTok with all those interesting and soul-healing videos. And this is the first man I would have to introduce, and not only introduce him, but introduce the guitar too. He's singing guitar. My brother. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm all good, man. It's very interesting that
me and the singing guitar. We're two different people. I'm one person, and then the singing guitar is a whole other person. So
you know, we had a lady who passed on, and the name was Zahara. She was almost like you. However, her guitar didn't get a chance to be named a singing guitar, and here you are. Not introduced alone and introduced with your guitar.
Yes.
Are you good, my brother?
I'm great. I'm doing great.
That's good, man. Maybe let's start with the singing guitar. I know it's not just from you, but it's a family thing. Tell us a story behind the singing guitar.
Well, my great uncle started out making his guitar talk, if you will, just the way he played it. And it was a lap steel guitar, because that's the same instrument that I play. It's a lap steel guitar. And then my grandfather started, playing. He was taught by my great uncle, and he really started making it, talk a little bit more. And then my father started, playing, and he could make it sing. And so I came, after all of them, and I just kind of just coined the phrase singing guitar, because nobody had ever, heard it like that before. And I just took it and ran with it and said, man, it's singing. Plus all the fans and the different comments I would see on TikTok and Instagram and everywhere, people was always saying, man, he's making it sing. And so I was just like, well, it's just going to be me and my singing guitar. And so it worked out that way.
Interesting, man. Why was it important for you to actually carry on the legacy of the guitar story?
Well, at first I didn't even want to play. I didn't want to play guitar. And, eventually it just happened. Life happened, and I just found myself picking it up and going forward. But I found myself realizing that being original, is so important. And I didn't know how to be anybody else but me. And so keeping, my family's tradition alive, meant so much. Before my grandfather passed away, he told my father, hey, don't ever let this go. And so my dad in return, handed it down to me. And, it's just something that just keeps us, close in spirit, so I can never let it go.
My brother, when one goes through your catalog and listen to you, and I must say, one of our guys, his name is Nubian Soul, and he hosts a show called Heartfelt Mornings every Sunday between 9 and 12. His backtrack is actually the singing guitar, and
wow,
that's
really?
where I first heard this sound, like this is a very interesting sound, bing, and I'm like, okay, this is very interesting. So I got to be introduced to that sound then. And then one had an opportunity to actually listen to your sound. And I kind of struggled to locate it, because it gives you that R&B feel, because he is an R&B DJ. So I would think that is why he would play that as this background sound. But if you were to give it an identity, what would you say your music is?
If I had to give it an identity, I would say it's healing music.
Hmm.
So healing music used in an R&B or fashion, if you will. But it's
Hmm.
definitely healing music because the sound itself just speaks to you. And I when I make songs like Singing Guitar Vibes, that particular song, I think it's like 10 minutes plus long, and
Hmm.
I just sat. I created a track and I just played on top of that track, and I didn't think about anything that I was playing. I just expressed whatever I was feeling in that moment, and I wouldn't stop playing until I felt like it was over, like it was done. And so that's one of the reasons why the song is as long as it is. But I would call it healing music because that's what I've been told. Also, that it does. For those who listen, they listen to it and say, "My goodness, and it's making me want to cry," or,
Hmm.
which is good. It's good a lot of times to be able to release in that manner. A lot of us have so much stored up trauma until we're afraid to release it, or we only think that we can release it through exercise or just however we feel like we got to release trauma, instead of just saying, hey, you know what, I'm gonna cry this out
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna heal after this. And I've found and heard and through testimonies, that's what the music does. So that's what I would call it, healing music.
Wow, very interesting. Also, speaking about healing music and having gone through your TikTok, obviously, and Instagram, I see whatever you would have posted would have been labeled there, and it emphasizes on that healing part. And one would ask as
Yeah.
to the I know it stems from the family since the 1930s. However, uh, it then poses a question to me, to say, are you a spiritual person? If firstly, would be my question. And I'm interested to know about your journey, your spiritual journey.
Yeah. Well, I'm very spiritual. I approach. I'm not a religious person,
Mm-hmm.
but very spiritual when it comes to um, just understanding everything around me, and making sure that when I approach my guitar, the singing guitar, making sure that when I pick it up, it's doing a spiritual thing. It's feeding off of me. So if I feel like if I'm not pure within, you're gonna hear that through the guitar. If I am, you're gonna feel that. You're gonna hear that. And so I'll even go on a certain amount of fast before I play. I always fast before I play. Just to be totally just cleansed
Wow.
spiritually. So that way what you're hearing and feeling is pure. It's real. It's not entertainment. It's something for you to be able to hear and listen to and say, hey, you know what, this is helping me, because I believe music has many different shoes, if you will, right?
Mm.
So you can use music for celebrating. You can
Yes.
use music also for healing. And I
Mm.
think that's one aspect that has been taken away. We haven't been focusing on that, as much. And so that's something that I want to bring back from a popular standpoint. And so it's definitely, yeah, it calls me to be as spiritual as possible and be real with myself. So that way, I'm not producing anything that can't help the listener. So my journey, my walk is extremely spiritual. I'm normal now. I'm not so deep, and you
Yeah.
can't. I'm not that. But I definitely, I try to stay as just spiritually based with the instrument as possible.
Hmm. Do you talk to it?
You know, no, I don't talk. I don't talk to it because I'm afraid if it say something back to me, then I'm gonna jump, and then I don't want that. So no, you know what? But I will say this though.
Uh-huh.
My you know what? One would probably say I do talk to it, but I communicate with it in a different manner. You know, it's kind of like, when we pray,
Mm.
right? We there you don't hear, a verbal response when you pray.
Mm.
There's more so of just this spiritual connection that you have, and you feel like, it is so, all will be well. I've put that out in the atmosphere, and now I feel like I can go on with my day. Well, that's kind of the connection I have with the guitar. I tell it what to do,
Hmm.
if you will, with my hands. And so, um, and it sometimes runs away from me and does what it wants to do, and that's the beautiful part, because it's almost like me saying, hey, this is how I'm feeling, and my hands touch the guitar, and it says, okay, I understand where you want to go, and we go, together
Hmm.
to that place. So, but that's the most communicating we do. As far as
Hmm.
talking to it, verbally, I don't. That'd be
Okay.
pretty impressive.
I often find, speaking about spirituality, I often find that when one, for an example, I have this belief that a person that tells a lot of jokes, they are the most depressed, or that tries
Yeah.
to make other people, enjoy the moment and create a fun environment. When you actually find out, you see that they are the most depressed. With you, in this case, where you are healing people, is there a possibility that you maybe finding yourself healing yourself too in the process of doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because going back to what I said earlier, I didn't want to play the guitar,
Mm.
growing up, and one of those reasons was because I resented my father for not being around
Hmm.
in my life, and so I didn't, and because he played, um, I didn't want anything to do with that. And it's a very interesting story, because his father did the same thing to him.
Yo.
And so, um, so 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 my grandfather didn't teach my father how to play, and my father didn't teach me how to play, if you will.
What?
So it was something, yeah. So me being apart from him made me not want to, do anything that he was doing, and
Oh.
um, and I found myself trying to prove, um, or trying to earn his love, if you will,
Mm.
and what came out of that was me saying, well, you know what, I'm gonna pick up this guitar, and I'm gonna show you that, I can do this, or that I'm important, and I've found that closed me up in the room growing up, and I didn't have much of a outside life, if you will. I'd
Mm.
stay locked up in the room, and I played that guitar. And I think during that time, I was able to capture something
Hmm.
that the world hears now as, the singing guitar, or the healing. I think I was able to. Something happened. Something happened, to me, while sitting up and playing in the room for all those many years. I was able to really tap into something pretty deep, and so it healed me
Wow.
in that time. It healed me, and I think that same spirit, that same energy, is what I'm giving out to everyone else, and I believe that's what everyone is feeling when
Mm.
they hear the music. You're It's like you're hearing, you're feeling my story, but it's also
It's the frequencies,
helping your
man.
story as well.
It's
So it goes pretty deep. But that's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that before, so that's a
wow.
great question.
But were you able to fully mend things with your dad?
Oh yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the beautiful part, because it
Mm.
worked. And so, I did. And there was it's in a time now because um he's not 100%, with his health.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm able to still be with him,
Mm.
and still hear certain things and learn certain things from him. But we were able to, all is well. I was
Wow.
able to utilize the guitar as a comforter, if you will, as a
Wow.
way to just kind of say, hey, listen, this is what you're going to need to make it through. And I'll tell you, I was so thankful because I believe the gift was passed down. For
Mm.
sure, it was passed down to me. He didn't have to be in the room to show me how to play for me to listen to him. And he went through a lot as well. Just in his childhood. And many times,
Mm.
if we're not careful, we can pass things down to our children. And I
Ooh.
believe that's what happened within my family of guitar players. It's like each one, from grandfather all the way to to my father. It's like you pass pain down. And so I was, I refused though to give it to my kids. I don't want them to have it, But I would have do it differently. But however that works, that spiritual, just effect. However that works, it definitely came in, and it totally it comforted me. It just it's hard to even talk about at times because when I start thinking about it, I'm so amazed, because not being taught, I wasn't musically trained or anything, and I literally would just listen to him play off of certain records that was recorded of him from church or something like that, and I literally, it's almost like whatever power he had was just given to me. It was passed down to me, and so um,
Wow. It's a
incredible.
beautiful
Yeah,
story.
it's a deep, incredible story, but I'm definitely appreciative. And yes, so yeah, we are on great terms.
That's great to
But
hear,
yeah,
man. I
yeah.
can you mentioned something very very important with regards to you having gone whatever you've went through, he went through. And I'm just here sitting and thinking that and you mentioned that if we're not careful we are going to pass those things through. And I'm sitting here and thinking, how do I pass love to my children if that's what I've never experienced in my growing up?
Hmm.
How
That's
do
yeah.
where have I learned that I would now have a family and actually give love to my family? Because what I know as family is that my dad ran away, and that's exactly what I'm going to
Oh
do
wow.
because that's exactly what I know. you know
Yeah. Right.
at times before we beat our parents up, if I should use that word, we
Yeah.
ought to investigate as to what did they go through, why is this
Exactly.
person doing what they are doing. If you see it and actually get the stories as to what they would have gone through, then you get to realize, as much as it would have been painful for you, but you get to realize as to that is why this person was unable to give me love when I needed love most, and that is why we're
Exactly.
here. So it's just
Yep.
a very interesting story. And you also mentioned earlier on that you would be an introvert, if I may call it that, where you'd lock yourself in the room and just play the guitar. Now you're in a public
Yeah.
space. Now you're doing TikTok videos and Instagram, and the world is so appreciative of you. How were you able to open yourself up to the world, coming from a broken family, if I may call it that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was hard at first, but I you know discovering really just a need, because growing up, I went to like a different a performing arts school where I had to perform in front of a crowd, um, or church. I had to get up and speak, and say certain things. So I was never afraid or had like fear of being in front of a crowd.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I wasn't a big crowd person. I'm still not, believe it or not. I'm not a big have to be around a big crowd type of a person.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you what, I after staying home during COVID, I realized that the music needed more than me trying to you know control it and be some rock star, if you will,
Mm.
because I went through that phase, and I just saw that, once again, just me being myself, connected with people. Just be who you are. Don't be afraid to do that. And it was again a transition, because I for a long time I didn't think that I could be myself, because if I'm in a room, and I'm playing whatever I feel.
Mm.
But once I'm influenced by my phone or the TV at the time, because we didn't have all these great phones at the time,
Mm.
once I'm influenced by the TV, now I'm thinking I'm supposed to be that person.
Hmm.
And so it took me a little while to discover the fact that being you is good enough.
Ooh.
If you want to work on you, you can work on you, but don't ever feel like you need to be somebody else in order to be great.
Ooh.
And that's what I discovered during the COVID-19 staying home. I discovered, okay, I'm not gonna sing anything. I'm not gonna try to write
Mm.
anything. I'm just gonna do what I did all those years ago, sitting in the room, and that was sit there and play. The only difference now is now there's a phone recording me sitting there and playing,
Mm.
and now my private time where I'm playing is now open for the world to see. And
Hmm.
so that's really what happened. Everybody was able to see what I have done for so many years in my alone time. And so I had now that part I had to get used to, because I'm like, wait a minute, you like this? This is okay. Me being me just picking up the guitar and playing, this is okay. And so
Yeah.
that's when that helped me so much, because at that point, when you know yourself, and you're okay with who you are, and you're in front of people, if you can, not I'm not saying, be a bad person and
Mm.
then be okay with that. I'm saying, hey, trusting the fact that, being you is okay, being
Ooh.
good, being the right person is okay. There was just no going back after that. It's like, well, you know what? I'm gonna sit here and play, and I'm not gonna say a word, because I come from singing,
Hmm.
writing. I'm a writer. I'm a singer. I do all of that,
Mhm.
and I just found that I wasn't doing any of that in those dark moments. What I was doing in those dark moments for myself was I was just playing the guitar. It was,
Wow.
and so to come from that to now all of a sudden, the world is watching is amazing, and it's definitely it's humbling, but at the same time, more so than anything, it lets me know that if you're not careful, if you're not careful, you will go over and beyond the call of duty that's not even your
Ooh.
purpose. You'll go, instead of just, it's kind of, because again, when I was playing as a young child, you know, I would sit there, play, I wouldn't speak, I'll just play. And I feel like then I knew what it was that I was supposed to do, but the influence said no.
Hmm.
That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You need to be this over here. And if we're not careful, we'll waste years just going back to point A when the answer was already given first.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? so I've went in the whole circle, if you will. It took this long for me to end up right back where I started, and that's just literally playing from the heart, playing from the heart and expressing myself and letting the guitar sing. And so that, if anything, I learned that. I'm like, whoa, we got to be careful, man, because it don't take years to figure out what you're supposed to be doing in this earth. The answer, many
Mm.
times, the answer is given. Many times it's given to you in your youth, when you're first born, when you can talk. Who you are supposed to be a lot of times it's given to you right then and there, but distraction happens and influence happens and it takes us off the course, and that's why we don't find peace or we don't find understanding till years and years later because of that distraction. But I just challenge anybody to go back to that place. Go back to that love, that passion, that part of you that you didn't have to think about doing. You just did it, and you didn't do it because it was a big financial payday. You did it because you loved it, and you saw that it helped you and others around you. And so that's that's my long answer. I'm sorry.
No, I love long answers. I love long answers.
Okay.
And you speak about putting the phone there, playing your guitar, and people accepting you for who you are, and people loving you for who you are, and you emphasize on the good side of it, and not be a bad guy and then expect people to love you. What sparks then it sparks this question. It says, did that, having grown up the way you did that, do you find that having healed you for when the world appreciates and loves you so much, did it heal the little boy in you?
You yes.
Hmm.
Yes, because I realized that, when you grow up, in a broken home, if you will,
Mm.
the first thing a child is going to feel is that he's not loved.
Hmm.
He or she isn't loved because you don't understand what it's like to be an adult
Hmm.
at the time.
Yes.
You don't
Yes,
understand
that's
how
true.
that works, and so that's your first. So I dealt with rejection
Hmm.
because I felt as though I needed to be someone else when I walked outside of that room in order to be accepted, because I felt who I was born to be wasn't good enough.
Ooh.
And that's based upon broken family. And so I realized, again, going back, it took me that many years to realize, AJ, you being who you are is who we love.
Hmm.
That's what I
Hmm.
realized. And it, again, it was like, for a moment, you got to get over yourself and say, man, like, I wasted all of that time
Hmm.
trying to do things a different way, and knowing that, my calling was to heal, knowing that my calling was to be able to give peace. And you know but when you don't see that being represented out here, you feel like it's not good enough. And you also say, well, how is that going to allow me to be able to take care of myself and my future family? So you go away from it.
Ooh.
you know in going away from it, all it's saying is that you don't love you, you're not comfortable with you, and so you need to be something else. And so, um yes, to be able to record those sessions of me playing in a room by myself once again, and the world hearing it and saying, hey, we love this.
Hmm.
It was healing it was healing, because at that point it was just kind of like, whoa, I became the example, um you know of the very point that I've been putting out here of healing, because I can't possibly say that something to help you, this music will heal you, if it hadn't done it for me. But it did. It totally, put every broken piece back together for me. And the key point was, hey, you are good enough. Hey, you are loved being you. You don't have to do all these other things in order to be accepted. And again, that stuff happens many times with, it starts with family, and then from family it's influence. What are you influenced by? And before you know it, you're someone else. And you're getting into these life changing situations because you're not being who you are. So if many times I've heard people say, it seems like I just keep attracting negative
Mm,
things. Well,
mm.
are you creating that negative energy?
Woo.
Are you being something that you're not meant to be? You're not called to be. So are you, you know, all because you want to be loved, all because you want to be accepted. Those are the things. And
Mm.
so, it really, again, I've never been so comfortable with being able to create music uh, like I am now, because I don't do it to sound like this person or be that person, because
Yeah.
the world has said, hey, no, this is what we need you to be, you.
Hmm.
And I think everybody needs to know that. I need you to be you just as much as you need me to be me.
Hmm.
That originality, and so I've it's a breath of fresh air, and I'm excited every time I go to create a song, or to just play. It never comes out right when I'm overthinking it, because I'm trying to make it sound like something that the listener may like.
Hmm.
But when I go to it and I say, you know what, I'm gonna close my eyes and I'm gonna let the guitar sing,
Hmm.
because that's the purest. That's me. That's my purest moment. I'm not thinking about what kind of instruments should be on the song. I'm not thinking about these things that are great. Don't get me wrong, they're great,
Mm.
but is it hindering you? Because I'll have songs stacked up because I don't feel like they're good enough, and it'll just be music just stored, and that someone can be like, hey man, that sounds fine, just put it out,
Yeah.
and so now I don't have that trouble anymore. Because I know now it's like, no, this is what's needed, and um and you're being you while doing it. And so it's a beautiful moment. But again, I couldn't tell you this if I didn't go through what I went through,
True.
so this isn't something that I read, on Google, or out of a
It's
book.
a
I
lived
went through it. I
experience.
literally took the journey, you know. So, but
Wow.
yes. So yeah,
Your
yeah,
music, my
yeah.
brother, and has found a deep connection in with the audience in South Africa. And you on the 10th and then on the 11th, I am told that you are coming here to to heal people, to bring your
Yes,
melodies and healing vibrations, with which resonate with listeners, and you're bringing music that uplifts the spirit. What are your
yes.
plans for the 10th? What is happening on the 10th and the 11th?
Well, exactly that. I plan to come and give an experience that has never been experienced before. And so I want me and my singing guitar, if you will, because it's
Hmm.
a band. It's both of us, right?
Yes, yes.
Um, to give you to give you something that you needed, and b that you've just never experienced before. I want to help change the idea about music only being for celebrating, for partying, for entertainment. I want people to remember that music, that there's a healing aspect, there's an
Hmm.
energy, and there's a vibration, and that also, you know you have to make sure that you're tuned into the right frequencies as well, because you can also be listening to certain things that's damaging you,
Hmm.
as well, and so it's no different from, not to go off on this, but it's on my heart, but I'm gonna say it real quick. But so it's no different than feeling like certain things your eyes just shouldn't see,
Hmm.
or certain things your mouth shouldn't say. Be careful what you say, be careful what you see. It's the same thing with your ears. It's another portal as well.
Hmm.
Be careful what you take in. And
Woo!
so I want to, I definitely, I want to make sure that I exemplify that on the 10th and the 11th of October. So come looking for a healing, come looking to have a great time, and at the same time, come to hear Sing Guitar Vibes. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience.
Wow. And where do people get the tickets?
You can go either to ajgent.com. That's my website, ajgent.com. Or you can go to, I believe it's Web Tickets.
Yes.
Yes, Web Tickets, and get your tickets there as well. So those are the two places, ajgent.com or Web Tickets.
And this is all happening at the Big Top Arena in Carnival City.
Yes.
Ooh, it's going to be interesting, my brother. I am interested to know, what do you say, we're wrapping this up, what do you say as a 60-year-old? What do you say to a 60-year-old AJ?
Wow.
After all is said and done, I'm interested to know, what are you going to say?
After it's all said and done, to a 60-year-old AJ,
yeah,
my plan would be to say, keep up the good work and stay strong.
Okay.
Yeah. Keep up the good work and stay strong.
My brother.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. Really appreciate your time. And thank you for opening up your heart to me. It's a beautiful conversation I had. I know you healed a lot of people, and I like going into these deep conversations because I do not want to be selfish about it and thinking that you are just talking to me. There's a young man that is listening to you. There's a young man that is going through what you went through. There's a young man that is going to go through what you went through. And for me, it's a matter like what David said in the Bible in Psalms 23, where he said, even though I walk through the valley, so people know that you're just walking through it and not staying in the valley. So thank you so much for healing that young man that is listening there, for healing that young lady that is listening there. And we may never even find out who their name are, but one day they'd say that AJ in an interview with the Duke healed me, because I know someone out there went through what I'm going through now. So thank you so much for that, my brother.
Yes.
And I cannot wait to see you on the 10th and on the 11th of October.
Yes.
It's going to be a big one.
It's going to be an exciting good time. Oh, yes.
Okay. Thank you, my brother. Have a great one.
You too. Thank you, too.
Yes, fam. That was AJ Gent. Whew. Wow, what a conversation with this gentleman. I think a young boy in me is healed too. I think I was a little bit selfish trying to heal myself, and it worked. And I get to be healed by the guitar and AJ, 2-in-1 package. This is the Weekend Vibe with the Duke on Urban Edge and Not Just Radio. We'll be back right after this.
This is Urban Edge, Not Just Radio. You are listening to the Duke on radio. Urban Edge, Not Just Radio.